Welcome to the Autonomous Dave podcast. For me, it's day 1,576 days from when I first purchased my property. And the crazy thing is I haven't even broken ground yet on my project. It's been a very long journey for me. A lot of it was saving up money, trying different ways to figure out how to finance the construction, going through the construction loan, and also going through the permit process. And basically starting from scratch out there. I didn't know any contractors or really anyone in the Joshua Tree area. I'm an architect by trade. My practice is based in LA, so most of my connections are in Los Angeles. So Joshua Tree is just kind of a clean slate for me, kind of starting from scratch. So it's been a journey. So I'm hoping to share that with you guys if you are looking in the Joshua Tree area. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to go over was the Joshua Tree Ordinance, and that's from San Bernardino County, and it was effective October 27th, 2020. And I'll put a link in the description where you can find this document, but I'll kind of outline it for you. So basically, the Joshua Tree is considered an endangered species, so it's on this potential candidate list, and that's through the California Department Fish and Wildlife. So right now, basically what's going on is if you say you're trying to develop a property out there and you have some Joshua trees on the property, well, first of all, if you're proposing any grading or any structure, basically any kind of disturbance within 40 feet of a Joshua tree, you're going to need to get some expert determination of avoidance, which is basically an arborist, but specifically they should be a desert native plant specialist. So I'll also post a link in the description. It's from the Mojave Desert Land Trust, and they actually have a list of arborists that's they recommend. So I'll post that in the description. So basically what the arborist will do, the certified arborist will basically prepare a report. They'll come out to your site and they'll survey all the Joshua trees. They'll make recommendations for how close you can get to them. They'll try to see where the root system is. Based on the size of the Joshua tree, they can make a determination of how safely you can get to the Joshua tree. So the other thing your arborist can do for you is when they're out on site identifying the Joshua trees, you should also talk to them about other native species that might be on your property. In my case, there was, maybe 15 other types of native plants that they recommended to keep or transplant, because you can't necessarily buy these from a store. Some of these will grow differently, not have the same type of form as how they grow in the wild. So I would highly recommend that you get an arborist before you start designing your house. Don't make the mistake I did. I just did a Google search. I thought I knew what the Joshua Tree root systems were like, and so I got within basically 6 feet of one of the Joshua trees, about 5 foot 6 inches. And I designed the house way too close to some of the Joshua trees. And I didn't find out until the pre-construction kickoff meeting. I'm just about ready to break ground. And I finally had an arborist out. And now I'm looking at actually pushing the house back about 4 feet. So we're looking at kind of the original house design before I push the house back. And you can see this is about too close to the house. There's other Joshua trees on the site. These ones are, for the most part, okay. There's kind of an issue also here with the septic leach field that you don't really see in this drawing, but we can talk about that in another video. So this is the updated site plan that we're looking at now. As you can see, I basically pushed the house back 4 feet to the north. And now the arborist basically said, we have 9 feet here. That is sufficient for the size and maturity of this Joshua tree. So this is the arborist report that we're looking at. And if you recall, the original survey I had done identified all of these trees. And this one here, when the arborist was out on site, she actually identified these smaller Joshua trees. All of these ones in this area were not on my survey. So if you remember when we looked at the driveway, previous driveway was kind of in this location, so we've kind of shifted it here, and these smaller ones we're able to avoid them now because we redesigned the driveway. This one back here, there is a septic design, so we're actually going to try to adjust the septic leach line to avoid tree 11, and we're going to try to work with the grader to see if we can preserve Joshua tree number 7 in place. If not, then we'll have to transplant it. The arborist thinks it's small enough and young enough where the root systems won't be so extensive and it'll be easier to transplant. So this is the website, the Mojave Desert Land Trust website, and I'll send you a link, but on here there's some links to the Joshua Tree Ordinance, and if you keep going towards the bottom, you can actually see a list of arborists, certified arborists, and also it looks like there's also some recommendations for companies that can do transplants. So because of the timing of when I did my permit back in 2019 and when I actually pulled my permit in the end of 2020, because of the effective date of the ordinance, which was right before I basically pulled my permit, kind of caught in the middle of this Joshua Tree Ordinance issue. So I had to contact the county, and at first they told me I was grandfathered in because the date of my permit application was back in 2019. I had a follow-up call with them the following week to basically talk to them about shifting the house 4 feet per the recommendation of the arborist, and unfortunately that's when everything kind of started to unravel. They started asking more questions about the Joshua trees, like, hey, are you within 40 feet of a Joshua tree? Luckily I was able to kind of push back because I was like, hey, you guys are giving me conflicting answers. Last week you told me I was grandfathered in. This week you're saying the ordinance applies to me. So we really landed on a compromise, which is I would still have an arborist prepare a report still to certify that no Joshua trees would be harmed. They would be protected in place during construction. All of the proposed grading and structure would be a safe distance from the tree. So I still had all of that documents prepared. I was able to push the house back 4 feet without an official permit amendment. And so now I can proceed to the next step, which is actually breaking ground. So I hope to share that with you next week. I hope you like this video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next week on Autonomous Dave.